the platform. So without further ado, I will allow Mrs. Siwela, our Director of Insurance at IPEC, to introduce, to talk about the insurance landscape in Zimbabwe. Over to you, Mrs. Siwela.
Thank you, Tatenda. Just a few seconds, I'll be with you right now.
That's okay, ma'am.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I will take you through my presentation, and the presentation outline has a definition of insurance. We'll talk to nature and basis of insurance contracts. We'll touch on principles of insurance, how to effect an insurance contract, and types of insurance, and insurance value chain, as well as talking about IPEC and its functions. What is insurance? There are many definitions for insurance, but I'll talk to this definition, which says it is a contract in which one party, which is the insured person, transfers predefined risks to another party, who is the insurer, in exchange for a premium. Depending on the contract, the insurer may compensate or pay benefits to the insured, who is the beneficiary, for the loss or for the damage or liability at the instance of an insured event. The nature and basis of an insurance contract. An insurance contract is between an insurer and insured person, who is the policy holder, in terms of which the former undertakes to pay the latter an amount of money or its equivalent, which is the sum assured or sum insured, should the risk borne by the insurer on behalf of insured materialize in exchange of payment of a monetary premium by the insured. In very simple terms, this means that the insurer promises the insured person that they will pay the benefits in the event that the insured risk occurs. Just to give an example on this one, the policyholder pays a premium for an insured car, which is the risk, on a regular basis. It could be monthly, it could be quarterly, half yearly, or even annually. So that in the event that the car is involved in an accident or stolen, the insurer returns the insured person to the position that they were immediately before the loss, to make sure that they remain the same. And this premium is always payable in advance. Essentials of an insurance contract: there is what we call insurable interest, there is the risk itself, the object being insured, the premium, undertaking by the insurer to pay a sum of money, which is the sum assured or sum insured. We'll talk to principle of indemnity, the utmost good faith, principle of proximate cause, principle of subrogation, and principle of contribution. These are the essentials of an insurance contract. I'll move on to talk a bit on each of these essentials. The principle of insurable interest, it is the interest that a person who we shall call A has in an asset or another individual, which we shall call B, such that the person who is A would suffer a loss should the asset be damaged or the individual be harmed. In simple terms, it means that you must have a financial interest in the object that you are insuring. Just to give an example, you cannot insure your neighbor's house because you don't have any financial interest in your neighbor's house. Or you cannot take a funeral policy for your neighbor. You also don't have an interest in the neighbor. So this interest is called insurable interest. It must always exist in all insurance contracts. Interest must be of economic value or benefit and must exist at inception of the policy and at claims stage. Let me give an example as well. If you are married and you divorce, it means that the insurable interest is no longer there after divorce, and therefore it is not expected that your ex-husband or your ex-wife can take an insurance contract for you because there is no longer an interest. The next principle of insurance, principle of indemnification, means that an insurer should place the insured in the position that they were in just before the occurrence of the loss. Indemnity applies to property, pecuniary insurance, and not to life assurance. The principle of good faith, of utmost good faith. The insurer and the insured must act in good faith towards each other. And we always say the duty of utmost good faith requires an insured person to disclose all material information with regards to the subject matter of insurance relevant to the insurer's decision to accept or reject the risk. This is called the duty of disclosure. Here it lies with the policy holder or the proposer. They are expected to disclose. Let me give an example of a life insurance. If you are taking a life insurance, you are the one that you know the condition of your health. You know it better than anyone else. And therefore, it is your duty to disclose everything to the insurer so that they decide whether to accept your life as a risk and also charge you the appropriate premium based on the condition of your health. The insurer as well has the duty to disclose to the proposer or to the policy holder and explain the terms and conditions of the insurance contract to the insured person in terms of what is covered, what is excluded from the contract. If either party fails to disclose material information before conclusion of the contract becomes voidable at the instance of the prejudiced party. So the prejudiced party can say, no, this contract is voidable because you did not disclose 1, 2, 3. It could be the insurer, it could be the insured person. We also have what we call the principle of proximate cause. The insurer is only liable for losses when they are proximately caused by the events, which we call perils covered by the insurance policy. If the proximate cause of a loss is not insured, the insurer will not be liable to compensate for the loss suffered. I'm trying to think of an appropriate example here. Let's say at a road intersection, there is a likely collision of two vehicles, and the other one dodges to the extent that it probably hits the road, the car that is not at the intersection, but that is parked somewhere else. We would call that a proximate cause. We also have what we call principle of subrogation. After compensating the insured for loss suffered as a result of an insured event, the insurer gets every right of the insured against the third party involved in the occurrence of the event. The insurer steps into the shoes of the insured to claim against a third party. Here, let's say you have an insurance, sorry, we have insured your property and you suffer some loss, and the loss is caused probably by someone else who is also insured with another insurer. Here, what we're saying is that your insurer will settle your loss and pursue the loss with the insured company of the other person. So they step into your shoes and claim against a third party. Principle of contribution. This is where an insured has more than one policy on the same risk. An insurer who has already paid the full amount of a claim to the insured has a complete right to recover the proportionate contribution from other insurers who covered the same risk. I think this is very simple. If you take insurance for one vehicle, for instance, the insurance companies must come together to share proportionately the claim that you may put forward. This is meant to make sure that you don't benefit from insurance. This is one key principle of insurance, that you don't benefit beyond being put back to the position that you were. You are not allowed to end up maybe getting two cars because you lost one car. If you lose one car, you must be compensated one car of the same value of that you insured. How to effect an insurance contract? One effects an insurance contract by signing a proposal form and paying premiums. The premiums payable depend on the risk profile and the type of coverage that is sought. There are many types of insurance. We'll talk to them briefly later on in this presentation. Types of insurance. There is what we call indemnity insurance. In indemnity, I mentioned it earlier on in this presentation. In indemnity, the insurer undertakes to make good the damage or loss suffered. Amount of damages is directly proportional to loss suffered or the sum insured, where it is less than the loss suffered. Principles of indemnity insurance. The amount of insurance payout cannot exceed the amount of damages incurred. If a person insures his or her car worth 20,000 and the damage is worth 15,000, she is entitled to 15,000. If it was insured for 10,000, she will only get 10,000. This is meant to ensure that people do not benefit beyond what they have lost. The indemnity insurance applies to property and motor vehicle insurance. It does not apply to life insurance. Like I mentioned earlier on, insurance is not meant to enrich policyholders, but to compensate and return them to the position immediately before the loss. If you had a vehicle that you were driving, a certain model, then you must get an amount that is able to get you the same vehicle. If the sum insured at the time of a loss is less than the market value of the insured property, the amount claimed under the policy will be reduced based on the difference between the sum insured and the market value. It applies on partial losses when there is underinsurance. An insured person may willingly choose to underinsure to reduce their premium to a level they can afford, or underinsurance may occur as a result of ignorance. This is also meant to protect insurers against paying undeserving claims. To give an example of an average clause, if one is insured, if one sum insured is 50% of the market value of a property, upon a claim, the insurance company will only pay 50% of the amount of loss. We have a formula there. Claim amount is equal to insured amount over the value of property loss times the amount of loss. Just to maybe decompose the example a bit, if market value, say for instance, is 15,000, the insured amount is 7,500, and the loss is 7,000. The claim amount will be 3,500, which is 50% of the loss of 7,000. The second type of insurance is non-indemnity insurance, where loss suffered and the agreed sum insured is paid. Insurer undertakes to pay a fixed amount if the event insured against takes place. This includes life and personal accident claims, e.g. when insurer A agrees with B that they will pay 10,000 to B's wife when B dies. The non-indemnity insurance particularly applies to life insurance. We know that you cannot replace life, but you can provide a financial comfort after you have departed to your loved ones. You can ensure that your family continues to enjoy the standard of life that they were used to after you have passed on by taking a life insurance. We also have liability insurance. It is insurance of one's liabilities incurred due to contractual, delicts, and other obligations. A good example of liability insurance is professional liability or indemnity insurance. This is usually insurance that is taken for professionals. I'll give an example of doctors. During the course of their duties, they may make mistakes and they may be sued for this mistake. And it is this type of insurance that protects the doctors or the directors. Also, they may make wrong decisions during the course of their duties. they can also take professional liability or indemnity insurance to protect them in the event that there is a claim. And the fourth type of insurance is reinsurance. This is where an insurance company transfers all or part of its risk to another company known as a reinsurer. It is a risk management tool for the reinsurance. So an insurer will insure maybe a lot of risks, but to ensure that they don't also run into the risk of facing many claims and maybe to the point that they close, they share also their risk with a reinsurer. And usually the policy holder is not aware that there is an arrangement between the insurer and a reinsurer. So the point of call for the policy holder is the insurance office. We also have what we call microinsurance. This is insurance for low-income households. There are many definitions as well for this type of insurance, but we'll go with insurance for low-income households, individuals, and small businesses. It mimics conventional insurance in many ways. The principles of insurance that we spoke about, they also apply to this type of insurance. The only difference is that it is at small values. For instance, the sum assured or the sum insured is low. It has similar features to conventional insurance. So I'm hearing voices. Can I continue? Okay, let me.
What have I done? You can continue, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Um, it is also talk of a risk if a person in the village there wants to insure their house. There must be an object to be insured. The only difference is the premium is low. The insurable interest must also exist, and an undertaking by the microinsurer to settle claims is also very important. Examples of microinsurance products, you see them in funeral um, insurance, hospital cash plan, legal aid plan, but they basically mimic the conventional insurance, only that here we're dealing with low values. There is agriculture index insurance. This is an area where other markets have really done well. It is an emerging type of insurance in our market. It mitigates against climate-related risks and is meant to protect farmers and also even smallholder farmers against the loss of crops due to drought. It can be excess rain, it can be cyclones, any weather patterns that may affect crops. The payout is based usually on a predetermined index and not on an actual loss suffered. Examples of this agriculture index insurance are weather index and area yield index. It is an area where we are trying to develop our market in. We've seen the need, and we also think that if people take up this type of insurance in the event that there is loss of crops due to weather changes, there will be um, low demand on the fiscus to help people. So there is a drive to promote this type of insurance. Area yield index insurance payout is based on realized average yield of a unit area of insurance, such as province, ecological zone, or district, deemed to have similar average yields across its breadth. I'll try and explain a bit about this. Let's take, for instance, an area. Let me use Mrewa for an example. If the average yield in Mrewa is maybe 1 ton per, let's say, per 20 by 20 meters, that's an average expected yield. And if people do not get that, they don't harvest that average yield, then the insurance must come in to compensate them and bring them to the level of average yield of a unit area. It sounds it's a bit technical, but here we are indexing against a yield of a unit area, and the whole point is we must get this amount of harvest from this area. And if it is triggered in the area because maybe there was too much rain or there was a drought, then the insurance company comes in to compensate the farmers. The weather index insurance is also similar to area yield, only here we are indexing against the weather. We monitor the rain patterns. Did the crops get enough moisture? Was it too much moisture? And if there is very little moisture, then the insurer is liable to compensate farmers based on the rainfall index of a particular area. I hope I've explained this. Right, I will move now to insurance value chain. The value chain starts with the insured person, who is the proposer. The next is intermediaries. You get this in the form of brokers, agents, bank assurance. All these are intermediaries. They're selling insurance products on behalf of insurance companies. You get corporate agents, you get individual agents. They are merely doing intermediary work on behalf of the insurer, soliciting business for the insurer, and also assisting the insured person to complete forms and to make sure that they understand the terms and conditions of the product that they are buying. In the value chain, there is an insurer who is responsible for underwriting. Underwriting here this is a process of selecting risks. If it is a life insurance, it is the policy of assessing the health risk, the health of the policy holders of the proposals, and saying, can we take this risk? How much is this risk? If it is a house also, it is the process of also looking at the object that is being insured and determining the price for the object, or rather determining the premium. Policy services is usually a department within the insurance company which is concerned with the maintenance of policies. It ensures that premiums are collected, premiums are applied, commissions are paid to intermediaries, policies that are due to lapse are lapsed. Basically, it is the maintenance of the policy during its life. Within the insurance company also, there is a claims department which is responsible for processing claims in the event that the insured event occurs. And the client services department is the department that interfaces with the insured members of the public and assist them in any requests that they may have. We also have a reinsurer. I think I spoke about a reinsurer. It is an insurance company for a direct insurer. The first one is an insurer, the second one is a reinsurer. So an individual cannot go straight to a reinsurer and say, I want to reinsure my property with you. The relationship is only between the insurer and the reinsurer. And the reinsurer also shares their risk with what we call a retrocessionaire. It's also an insurance company which also does insurance with reinsurance. So in the event of a claim, they then settle the claim proportionately, depending on the amount or the share of risk that they are holding. Insurance industry architecture, there is a breakdown there. If you can see on the slide, in 2022, as of December 2022, we had an amount of 2,495 licensed entities. And as at March, we have seen a movement to 2,643 licensed entities. This talks to growth of the industry. Right, let's talk a bit now about IPEC. IPEC is a statutory body established in terms of the Insurance and Pensions Commission Act, Chapter 24 and 21. It used to be a department under the Ministry of Finance, and it commenced operations in 2005. The key mandate of IPEC is to regulate, supervise, and develop the insurance and pensions industry for the protection of policyholders and pension scheme members through regulatory excellence. We are currently regulating insurance, pensions, and provident fund schemes. And what is the rationale for regulation? It is for protection of the interests of the insuring public and private occupational pension fund members. In most instances, the members of the public do not understand insurance the way that the regulator does understand, and the regulator is able to step in terms of protecting members of the public and stand in the gap and discuss issues with the insurance companies. It is for existing policyholders and pension scheme members. It is also for stability of the insurance and pension industry and the financial sector as a whole, in line with NDS 1. And the other purpose of regulation also is to develop the insurance and pensions industry, and also to oversee the public funds that are in the hands of a few, and decisions being made by board of directors of insurance entities without consulting the policy holders. So the regulator's purpose is really to ensure that the policy holders get a fair deal in the relationship with the insurer. What are functions of IPEC? It is to register insurers, mutual insurance societies, agents, loss assessors, and insurance brokers. It is also to register pension and provident funds, to regulate and monitor operations of the industry. I will continue with the functions of IPEC to provide information to the public on matters relating to insurance and pension and provident funds, and to encourage and promote insurance and investments in such funds, and also to advise the Minister of Finance on matters relating to insurance and pension and provident funds, as well as to perform any other function that may be conferred or imposed on the Commission in terms of the IPEC Act or any other enactment. Sorry. Right. Industry assets as at end of December 2022, the industry asset was standing at 475.998 billion in nominal terms, and we've seen a 57% movement to 746.04 billion in nominal terms. Gross premium written in 2021, the industry wrote business worth 37.62 billion in nominal terms, and this moved by about 359% in 2022 to 172.85 billion, which was a 91.03% increase. The breakdown is as per figures provided on the screen. Ongoing projects within the commission, within IPEC, ZICAP. This is a risk-based capital regime addressing challenges with rule-based supervision. This was we're at implementation stage of ZICAP. We started in January 2023. Before you would have capital requirements that are uniform for every insurer, but the risk-based approach ensures that your capital is calculated according to the risk that you are carrying. If you are carrying low risk, then you're entitled to low capital. But if you are carrying a huge risk, then your capital has to be commensurate with the risk that you are carrying. Mortality tables. These are Zimbabwean-specific mortality tables that are being developed. We're at a very final stages of developing these mortality tables. Actually, we are almost done and ready for implementation of the mortality tables. Mortality tables are to do with studies that say at what rate are people dying in Zimbabwe. Since ever, we've been using mortality tables for UK and South Africa, but I think we came to the realization that the lifestyles in UK and the lifestyles in South Africa may be different to the lifestyles in Zimbabwe. So we have developed our own mortality tables, which are due to be launched this month of July. IFRS 17, this is a new accounting standard for insurance contracts effective 1 January 2023. Agriculture index insurance, I've spoken about this. We are in a project. We are partnering with the International Finance Corporation, which is an arm of the World Bank, to try and develop agriculture insurance in Zimbabwe. We're also trying to capacitate the industry, make them understand how it works, as well as to capacitate ourselves. We also partnered in 2022 with the Access to Insurance Initiative to develop an agriculture index insurance product for smallholder farmers. We worked on this with many stakeholders, farmers themselves included, the smallholder farmers, Minister of Finance, Minister of Agriculture. We came up with a product that is called the Farmers Basket. It is currently at pricing stage, and we will be piloting this product in Goromonzi. And if the pilot is successful, we will be spreading this product to the entire country. Recent regulatory developments, we issued an offshore investment guideline, we issued a funeral model directive, the no premium and no cover principle, which is a basic requirement of insurance that the premium must be paid in advance. We also amended our directive on corporate governance and risk management for insurance companies. And as well as we came up with the new levies and fees structure through statutory instrument 103 and 104 of 2023. We also reviewed our product approval framework. This is just to guide the industry on what we expect when they submit a product to us at a very minimal level. We also drafted the USD indexed minimum capital requirements regulations, which are due to be gazetted anytime soon. This is after the realization that in this environment, we would have to keep on coming up with new figures on a regular basis. So a decision was taken to index the capital against the USD. This now brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you, Madam Master of Ceremony. I will end here. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Swela, for that very comprehensive presentation. Without wasting much time, I will hand over to the Acting Deputy Director of Contributions and Compliance, Southern Region, from NASA, Mr. Vusa Mlongwa. I hope I have pronounced that correctly. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam. Yes, you have pronounced it very well. That's correct. It's Vusa Mlongwa. I'm based in Bulawayo, in charge of Southern Regions, which covers Matabeleland, Masvingo, and Midlands. Right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all. Right. My presentation will be on contributions and compliance. I'm trying to. So someone's trying to share the screen.
That's okay, sir. In the meantime, colleagues, you can utilize the chat platform if you have questions. Some of our team members will also be able to assist.
Right, my presentation will be on contributions and compliance. I'm not sure, Madam Makata is sharing from that side. I have a challenge here. Right. As you can see on the screen, I said our presentation from NASA is on contributions and compliance. Contributions and compliance is a department within NASA which is responsible for registering employers and also collecting the monies and also responsible for the data. Right. First, we're going to talk about, we're saying NASA, we want to be a world-class provider of social security. That is the NASA vision. Then the Enabling Act. NASA was created as an Act of Parliament. Act of Parliament, Chapter 1704 of 1989. It is mandated to administer every scheme and a fund establishing act to advise the minister on all matters on the operations of the schemes and on matters relating to social security. Current schemes which are governed by NASA, we've got the statutory instrument SI 168, Statute SI 68 of 1990, which establishes the Accident Prevention and Workers' Compensation Scheme, which we call AP, WCS. We also have the statutory instrument. We also have the statutory instrument 393 of 1990, which established the pensions and other benefit schemes, which we call POPs. I think this is the popular scheme where employees contribute and the employer contribute. We also administer the Factories and Works Act, Chapter 1408, and the Pneumoconiosis Act. We can proceed. Then overall, our objective is compliance now in the department. Our overall objective is to ensure viability of all social security schemes through enforcing compliance with the NASA statutes, timeous registration of contributors and employers, effective collection of contributions and premiums. Premiums here we refer to the workers' compensation payments which are done by employers, creation and the maintenance of accurate member data. Right, the key responsibilities of the department, that is contributions and compliance, you can see there is membership enrollment, which is in simple terms, that is registration, then collection of revenue, maintenance of member data. Here we're saying the records of employers and the records of contributors. We also have compliance audits. That this is the section of our team of inspectors who help employers with this audit, or where we audit employers to ensure that they are properly registered and their employees are registered as contributors, and also that they are paying the correct amounts. Then we've got a back office, which we call debt management or credit control, which ensures that they do follow-ups from the office, communicate with the employers on members related to contributions or registration, so that employers comply. Right, who is covered by NASA schemes? Here we said we are going to talk about two schemes, the APWCS, Accident Prevention and Workers' Compensation Scheme, and the POPs, which is the Pensions and Other Benefit Schemes. Right, let's start with the AP, the Workers' Compensation Scheme. We are saying all workers formerly employed in a profession, trade, or occupation who are above the age of 18, if they are working. Then number two, we are saying it's 100% employer funded, meaning that employees don't contribute, but it's the employer who contributes. You are saying workers who are employed are state employees, domestic workers, and the informal workers. Then on the POP side, we are saying all employees between the age of 16 and 65 years. And they are Zimbabweans who are either employed in Zimbabwe or outside Zimbabwe. And the insurable earnings which they are supposed to contribute is deducted from their salaries. We're saying three persons who are ordinarily resident in Zimbabwe, including state employees. These are the people who are covered. Employees who are exempted, they are non-Zimbabwean citizens who are not ordinarily resident in Zimbabwe, diplomatic staff who are diplomatic staff who are non-Zimbabwean, persons employed as domestic workers, and the informal workers. We can proceed. Right, the membership here. How does the employer register? All employers must register within 30 days of becoming an employer, and the registration is compulsory. Registration is through the NASA self-service portal. Talk about the portal later on. And after processing the application, NASA will notify the employer of his or her BP and SSR number, Social Security number. Employers, being agents of the authority, are mandated to register their employees, who will also be issued with Social Security registration numbers. Employees must then create individual accounts on the self-service portal to track their contributions and update their personal details. We can move on, next slide. Right, can anyone pay contributions on a voluntary basis? The answer is yes. The eligibility criteria for enrollment as a voluntary contributor have been relaxed from 4 months to 5 years. Any person who ceases to be an employee or any employer may be a voluntary contributor. Any person who ceases to be an employee of any employer may be a voluntary contributor, but must be under the age of 60 years and had, whilst employed, contributed for a period of not less than 12 months. Employer obligations upon registration. The obligations that befall an employer is payment of contributions and premiums, which should be done by the 10th of each month, and the employer must maintain records of deductions made. Then we've got records management. An employee record must be maintained, and the employer should notify NASA for any change in address, termination or death of an employee, or cessation to be on an employer. Then returns, the employer should submit the NASA P4 return on the NASA self-service portal monthly, immediately after pay run or on or not later than the 10th of each month to avoid being penalized. What are the obligations of the employee? We've been talking about the obligations of the employer. Now we're talking about the obligations of the employee. We are saying every employee shall provide his employer on request with such personal particulars as may be required, and the employee shall be responsible for the accuracy of the particulars so provided. Remember, this employee we are talking about is the contributor. In order to improve the quality of contribution data, the authority holds for each contributor workers and encouraged to check, workers are encouraged to check regularly the status of their contributions and membership record to avoid surprises at the time of claiming. This is a new obligation which came up after the reforms, where an employee is now or contributor is required to check regularly within a period of 5 years. If you don't check within a period of 5 years and you come back and say there was a mistake here, it might be difficult to correct. The law said you must check within 5 years. Then we now move on. What is the current rate of contributions? We'll start with pensions and other benefit scheme, which we say it is POPs. Currently, the employer and employee contribute an equal amount of 4.5% each of the insurable earnings up to a maximum ceiling. The insurable ceiling is now being adjusted on a quarterly basis in line with the self-adjusting framework. Employers paying salaries in both Zimbabwean currency and the USD currency are required to deduct and pay contributions in both currencies, subject to insurable earnings ceiling ruling at that period. Foreign currency remittances, income earned, received or accrued in whole or in part in foreign currency shall pay contributions in foreign currency. The self-adjusting framework. Then we go to the accident prevention and workers' compensation scheme. The businesses are classified according to industries, and each industry is allocated an industrial code, which we call an IC. And each industrial classification is allocated an insurance rate based on a risk analysis. The rates are regularly reviewed and gazetted into law. There is no ceiling for both ZWL and the USD on the accident prevention and workers' compensation scheme insurable earnings. This means that there is no need for employers to pay salaries in both currencies, Zimbabwe dollar and the USD, to determine maximum insurable earnings. The total basic salary is multiplied by the applicable APWC rate to determine the amount due. The accident prevention and workers' compensation premium amount is wholly funded by the employer, and therefore no deductions are made on the employee's earnings. Let's now look at the active membership spread as at 31 May 2023 this year. For administrative purposes, NASA has got 6 regions. Then here we realize that we also have head office, which makes it 7. Head office, the employers, there are 2 employers there. Here, basically, we're talking of the state as an employer. And also the other one is NASA there. Then the employees of the state, including those of NASA, 341,000. Then we've got Harare region, which has employers, about 21,000 employers, which is 55% of the whole portfolio of NASA. And the employees is 748. It gives us 52% of the total employment or total contributors at NASA. Then we've got Bulawayo, which covers the Matabeleland provinces, 3 of them. It has got 5,765 employers with 112,000 employees. Then we've got Gweru, which stands for Midlands here, 2,369 employees and 49,000 employees. We've got Mtare for Manicaland, 2,646 employers with 67,000 employees. Then we've got Masvingo, the Masvingo province, which has 2,500 employers with 52,000 employees. Then we've got Chinoi, which is Mashonaland West, which has 2,333 employers with 65,000 employers. You'll notice that Harare, it also covers Mashonaland East and Mashonaland Central. Right, the powers of inspectors. In our introduction, I think we also talked about inspectors. How do we enforce or how do we help employers to ensure that they cope with their obligations? NASA employs what we call compliance inspectors or inspectors. NASA employs inspectors who have statutory powers of inspection and inquiry to enforce compliance, to ensure compliance by employers, employees, and other persons with the provisions of the scheme. That is registration, entry into business premises, those are the powers. They enforce production of wage records. They carry out audits to prevent error, fraud, and evasion. They institute legal recovery options, that is as a last resort. Right, the compliance enforcement will. Here we're saying the key thing is the relationship management. Know your client or know your customer approach. Then we've got what we call collaborations with key stakeholders and partners. We've adoption of a NASA clearance certificates as mandatory requirement for tender processes. The NASA clearance certificate, employers can produce it from the NASA self-service portal, provided their standing is good, payments are up to date, returns are submitted properly. When they tender for projects or make tenders, it's now a requirement that they produce that. The clearance certificate. Clearance certificate safeguards them, those who are contracting, the contractor. In case there are accidents, you are sure that the person is what is contracting insured people. Then certificates of appreciation to compliant employers. Then we also have compliance audits. Then continuous statutory reviews to align with the operating environment. The adoption of ICT for ease of doing business. Penalties for non-compliance. This is something which employers can avoid. If you are compliant, you avoid all these penalties because they become a cost to the business. And litigation process as a last resort to address issues around evasion. Then common criminal offenses arising from non-compliance. There is evasion of payment of contributions and premiums, failing to comply with any of the provisions of the NASA Act, fraudulently produce or obtain a NASA clearance certificate. Remember, the NASA clearance certificate, remember I said you can produce it from the self-service portal. This can be done by employers when they are tendering. Then obstruct an inspector or officer of NASA in discharge of his or her duties, or knowingly deducting from an employee's wage salary any amount exceeding the employee's portion. It's important that employers, they deduct the right amount. There's no need to over-deduct from the workers, because an over-deduction can also be used as an evasion, where you over-deduct from a few, and when you pay, employer can now reduce his obligation, and it appears as if employer has put also his contribution, yet it is an over-deduction from the workers. So that's why it's important to make sure that correct amount is deducted. Disclosing confidential information and any acts of corruption are not allowed to disclose any information unnecessary to people who are not supposed to get it. Is an offense. Then the NASA clearance certificate. Let's talk about the NASA clearance certificate and its importance now. We're saying it's issued to organizations compliant with NASA statutory instruments 393 of 1993 and the SI 68 of 1990, the Workers' Compensation Accident Prevention and Workers' Compensation Insurance Scheme. NASA clearance is issued subject to employers and is issued to registered employers and is issued for free, subject to the employer being compliant in terms of payments of contributions and the premiums, as well as submission of returns. It acts as an assurance that the trading partner's employees are adequately covered by social security schemes. Non-compliance places liability on the contracting business in cases where workplace injuries occur. The NASA clearance certificate is a mandatory requirement for all tender processes, and all businesses are required to contract or subcontract NASA compliant entities by demanding a valid NASA clearance certificate. All businesses are required by law to include the NASA clearance certificate as one of the listed requirements in all media adverts for procurement, that is to say, all tender expressions of interest or request for suppliers list. How does one ensure authenticity of a NASA clearance certificate? You can do this by checking online through our NASA self-service portal. Alternatively, it can also be authenticated using a QR code scanner, using a smartphone or a computer. On the face of the certificate, there is a barcode which you can easily scan to authenticate. However, for those companies or organizations that might not have access to these facilities, they can also confirm and authenticate with their nearest NASA office. That one is just a picture of the SSP's NASA self-service portal. We can move on. Let's not worry much about that. Then introduction of a self-adjusting framework. The key reforms which NASA has made since 2021 We are saying NASA, we've introduced the self-adjusting framework for the pensions and other benefits scheme, that is insurable earning ceiling. There is a relaxation of the eligibility criteria for enrollment as a voluntary contributor, penalties for late registration, obligations for employees, coverage of employees for diplomatic mission and the international organizations, penalty for non-submission of P4 returns, and alignment of due date with payment date. Remember, the due date for payment is the 10th of every month, which applies also to NASA returns, usually the P4. NASA clearance certificate, mandatory for all ministries, departments, and agencies as they do their procurement processes. Right, challenges and opportunities. The challenges and opportunities. The challenges, poor voluntary compliance. This is a culture. People don't voluntarily pay contributions. The microeconomic instability is also a challenge. Then the dwindling contributor base, also a challenge. I think you will agree with me. The informalization of business. Those people and most of the informalized businesses are not registered. In fact, they are not registered. Then it gives a challenge. We've seen big companies, when they go down, what comes out now is small entities or individuals who run their own businesses for survival. So that is a challenge. Then the opportunities, membership with regional and the international bodies like the ESA, then adoption of ICT by government, collaboration with other statutory bodies to improve compliance, collaboration with other statutory bodies. Here we're saying other organizations, we sign memorandums of understanding or memorandum of agreement where we work to collaborate with those so that we share information for the benefit of making sure that everyone is registered. Right, the other question that comes is, how do people access NASA? We're saying NASA, we've talked about the 6 regional offices, Harare, Bulawayo, Midlands, Masvingo, Mtare, and Chinoi. We also have sub-offices in Marondera. For Harare, we have sub-offices in Marondera, Pindura, Willowvale, Shivu, Chitungwiza. And we've got mobile offices in Buri and Mount Dawi. Mobile offices, this is where we go once a month, usually on payday for pensioners, so that we assist them there with queries and also collect all documentation or NASA returns which employers intend to submit to NASA. Then Bulawayo sub-offices, we've got Victoria Falls, Wange, Gwanda, Bedbridge, and Lupane. Mobile offices is Binga, Nkai, and Plumtree. Then Midlands region, which is Gweru, we've got sub-offices in Gokwe, Kwekwe, Shavane, Mataga, and Nembudzia. Region 4, Manicaland, Mtare, we've got sub-offices in Rusape, Chipinge, and mobile offices Marambinda, Nyanga, Chimanimani, Hauna. Region 5, Chiretsi, Gutu, Ngundu. Those are the mobile offices. Then Chinoi, Mashonaland West, we have Karoi, Kadoma, Kariba sub-offices, and Kurul. At sub-offices, we do have got compliance inspectors there, administrators there, and we do all the receipting and receive all paperwork where we can actually process benefits there. But mobile sub-offices is just a place where we get the queries and assist the clients from there. Then our clarion call, to journalists. We're saying journalists have got a special role in the dissemination of accurate information by raising awareness on the risks of non-compliance to schemes sustainability. We want also them to lead by example by checking your own contribution status. Remember, we said an employee or a contributor now has an obligation to check his status within 5 years to make sure that NASA maintains a correct and accurate record. That is our clarion call. Right. This brings us to the end of our presentation, contributions and compliance. I want to thank you for taking this opportunity to listen to this presentation. I hope you have noted your questions, if any, so that we'll answer them. Thank you very much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mlongwa. Thank you for keeping to your time. We are now moving on to the question and answer segment. So I will start with the questions that were sent in the chat. Edna Makaza asked, under which category does insurance for informal traders fall, or if it's there yet? I see that that one was answered by Mr. Tsuro, but she also had a follow-up question, she or he. Does IPEC also regulate time frame for compensation in case of loss? I will have someone from our team to answer that. Mrs. Suela.
Thank you. Thank you, Tatenda. Let me just add and put a bit of flesh to Tsuro's response that microinsurers would be able to offer insurance for informal traders. It also depends on the class of insurance that they're looking for. But ideally, I think they fall within the category for microinsurance. In addition to that, the capital for conventional insurers also allows them to underwrite microinsurance. So they could also approach the conventional insurers, the traditional insurers, for cover that they require. Yeah, and then the next question was to do with turnaround time for compensation in case the insured event occurs. We do expect that insurers compensate policyholders within a reasonable time frame. Normally, this will be indicated per product in the policy document. So it's critical for policyholders to also go through the policy document and understand the contents of the policy document even before you lodge a complaint. I think it only makes sense that you read your policy document and make sure that you are aligned with the policy document in terms of expectation from the insurance company. But over and above that, my apologies, this was missing in my presentation. Over and above that, as IPEC, we do also assist policyholders where they have complaints with the insurers. We receive complaints in writing, in person. They can walk into our offices. They can also give us complaints telephonically. We will assist them as much as possible whenever they have problems with registered insurance. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Mrs. Wela. This question is for NASA. Some employers tend to run away from NASA compliance inspectors during visits. What could be the major challenge? Mr. Fusasa?
The obvious challenge, madam, would be that their records may not be up to date. So they may run away during when they are aware that inspectors are coming to them. But nevertheless, if employers are visited and they are not found, appointments are made, they are not found, the law allows NASA to make estimates. And based on those estimates, you are allowed to place either a garnish or take legal action, and the employer is compelled to pay. Then explain later, which becomes a big burden. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vusa. Now I will ask Mr. Alois Vinga. You can unmute your mic and ask your question. Mr. Vinga, sir, you can unmute your mic and ask your question. Okay, I presume that he's probably facing challenges whilst he's attending to that. We'll also answer Mr. Mtanda Zonyoni. Good morning. My question is directed to Sibongile Swela. You spoke about the agricultural index-based insurance. So far, what is your assessment? Are farmers welcoming it? What are the sentiments out there? Mrs. Swela?
Thank you, Chatenda, and the person who asked the question. There's a lot of interest in this area from all stakeholders, which involve the insurers as well. Insurers are also very keen to roll out this type of insurance. The farmer organization who represent farmers are also keen to try this type of insurance. So we've seen a lot of enthusiasm in this area. We are currently working on a framework to guide the industry on this type of insurance. But in the absence of a framework, there are insurers that are doing something about it. They are offering this product. It is takers, but not in a structured manner that we would want. So there is a need, the interest is there. The stakeholders are all willing to participate. We really look forward to growth of this type of insurance. Thank you, Tatenda.
Thank you, ma'am. I am not seeing any other raised hands. Colleagues,
Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, moderator. My question is directed to Mr. Vusa. I got so much interested about the part where he mentions that it has become the responsibility of the employee to cross-check his records with NASA in as far as how his deductions have been captured and recorded within a period of 5 years. I don't know if I got that correctly, Mr. Vusa. Maybe I could have missed that point.
Yes, you got it correctly, sir.
Okay, so now my question is, what then becomes of an employee in the event? You know, I've been covering these labor issues for quite some time. And I remember coming across an employee who says he has been contributing for 20 years, goes to NASA and only to get the shock of his life that only a year's contributions had been captured. How are such anomalies corrected? And also what could be the challenges contributing to that? Because I understand that the money would have been deducted, it has been invested. And then we are now saying if it is after 5 years, it becomes difficult to correct such a record. So how then do we as NASA account for such funds? How do such anomalies get corrected?
Thank you for that question. Right. The first thing you were saying, here the law intends to protect the employee, the contributor himself, by placing that responsibility on him or her to check his contribution or his registration status with NASA within a period of 5 years, so that it does not prescribe. Right. If we say to ourselves, why then should that happen? There are occasions or chances where an employer can employ people and not register them with NASA and operate right there. Let's take the mining activities which happen right in the bush there. You're employed in the bush there, you work for 1 year or 6 months, your employer has not registered you. Then that company falls, it closes. You see, once the company is closed and you cannot produce evidence that you were employed by this person, it becomes a challenge for NASA. The contributions themselves, the employer could have deducted, but he had not submitted even those contributions to NASA. So that's what this law tries to mitigate, so that there's also the obligation of the employee to come to NASA. Because it can happen when employer employs somebody, deducts contributions, but does not submit the contributions to NASA. Let me just give an example. You employ 40 people, you register 40 people, all of them, you over deduct from these workers, and you bring all the contributions here, but the employer has not contributed, but contributing for a few employees. That is another way of evasion, where if this employer becomes NLE was saying no longer operating where he falls, it will be difficult because there will be no one. Currently, we're saying to check the contribution status, whether they are correct or not correct, inspectors go to an employer. But where this employer is no longer there, it becomes a challenge. So this law was meant to ensure that employees come. But nevertheless, as NASA, we've not just hidden behind this to deny people contributions. Where an employee comes to NASA and we realize that there were no contributions coming or the records are not correct, we've got investigators who do investigations, who go to the employer, check for these returns. Employees are allowed also to produce evidence of employment by way of paid slips, by way of any other documentation you had with the employer. But you bear with me that if this is investigated, let's say 5 years later, going backwards, becomes a challenge. But investigations which are done in the earlier years, whilst the records are there, it gives us a better option. I think that is the answer I can give you. I'm not sure whether I've answered it well, sir. Thank you.
No, okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vusa. I am not seeing any other hands. Do we have more questions for our presenters before we move on to the next segment? Okay, I'm guessing the presentations were very clear. Well done to our presenters. So we'll move over to the next segment as the winning articles presentation. Over to you, Loin.
Morning to you. As usual, our prizes selected based on research, relevance, and how well the articles are written and the videos as well. Our prizes for winners, it's 200 USD, equivalent to a bank rate, and for the runner-up is 150 USD, equivalent as well to the prevailing bank rate. So we'll start with the print media. Our runner-up is Tendai Gukutikwa, Manika Post, 150 USD equivalent. Well done, Tendai. Our winner is Mtanda Zonyoni, Alpha Media, 200 USD equivalent. Well done. We will move to the next category, which is digital. Our runner-up is Shingirai Vambe, Post on Sunday, 150 USD equivalent. Our winner is Priska Chuma from Newswalk, 200 USD equivalent. Our last category, which is electronic media. Our runner-up is Noctulan Lovu from ZPC TV, 150 USD equivalent. And our winner is Rumbidzai Mashaya Hanya, 200 USD equivalent. Well done, guys. Makorokoto. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you very much. And congratulations to all the winning journalists. This brings our session close to an end. Would like to continue to encourage you to write, and we are also available offline if you have any questions or you need more clarity on the issues that would have been presented. I will invite Mr. Mtsekwa to give us the closing remarks, and then we can end the session. Over to you, Tendai.
Thank you, Tatenda. I will stand in for Mr. Mtsekwa, who is in another engagement.
Okay, thank you, Agatha. Sorry, before we share the closing remarks, just to clarify that Loktula is from Kulumani FM, one of our winners, and not ZBC. Thank you. Over to you, Agatha.
Thank you. Allow me to say congratulations, Makorokoto Amhlope, to all the winning journalists this morning. Well done, colleagues. Your efforts and immense contribution to increased knowledge around insurance and pension issues is much appreciated. Our assurance, as Tatenda mentioned, is on continuous provision and availability of resources to set you up for continued successful reportage. Our teams will be available for referencing for you to continue to write these articles. Thank you very much. Allow me also to extend our appreciation to IPEC for this mutual relationship that has positively transformed the perception of insurance and pension matters. Thank you very much to Madame Swela for the presentation today, a very insightful and well-elaborate presentation. We also appreciate the relevant examples that you were throwing here and there to bring clarity to the presentation. Allow me also to appreciate Madam Swela for keeping us updated on the recent regulatory developments that you've shared with us. We continue to learn and we continue to look forward even to more reporting around the new developments. To NASA, I want to appreciate Mr. Mhlongwa. Thank you, sir, for taking us through the contributions and compliance division within NASA. You have done justice to highlight on the expectations that NASA has from both employers and employees. We appreciate, even as you took us through our what's expected from the employers around contributions and submission of remittances, even around record keeping, which is key even in terms of claiming benefits when the time is come. Thank you very much, Mr. Mplongwa. And also allow me to appreciate the NASA marketing team, as well as the IPEC marketing and PR teams for setting up this virtual meeting and for all the work that was done behind the scenes. We look forward to continued engagement and interactions as we continue to heighten awareness around pensions and insurance matters. Thank you so much, and over to you, Tatenda.
Thank you, Agatha. Thank you to everyone who attended. We look forward to the next session, and this brings us to the end of this one. Have a good week ahead. Bye.
Thank you, team. Thank you.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.